Hey guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. Revive the stage with me, Pascal, and with my man, Steve Hall. This time from London. Yeah, from London. Special occasion. We've been in Berlin once. Other than that, we're always recording from Berlin and from London, and this time we are here. Why?
So this weekend has been probably one of the most exciting weekends that I've ever had. Like one of the most exciting weekends of my life, which sounds ridiculous, but it really was. So this was the Mike Israetel conference that we've been plugging every single episode because that's all we do on these shows is just plug products. This was the weekend where Mike came over, day one conference, basically new, never seen concepts for maximizing muscle hypertrophy, presentations, and also my presentation on adipose phobia, fat phobia, fear of gaining fat whilst bulking.
Which was awful. Did a terrible job at it. No, he did a really good job.
Hopefully we'll get some good feedback. That was a fantastic day. And then today has been a day in the gym where Mike just took people through different various exercises and then took them through a workout, and people were, blood, sweat and tears is an understatement of what happened. But it's been a fantastic 2 days, and big thanks to this man here as well who helped me out a ton.
Me,
made
Pascal.
a big difference, and I don't think I could have, it wouldn't have been as successful without Pascal. I think, credit to me, I could have got it done. It wouldn't have been anywhere near as good. It would have happened, because it would have happened, but it definitely wouldn't have been anywhere near as good.
No, it was an awful, awesome, I just wanted to say awesome weekend. And also, you said everything already, but there's one thing I wanted to point out to all of you guys. If you are aware of the dimensions of Mike himself, it is simply something else when you're standing next to him. He's gigantic, a mountain of a man. I was standing next to him and someone took an image of us, and I looked like as if I never touched a weight in my entire life. And I am quite proud of this achievement. I pulled 3 times body weight in my life. Yeah, so 240 kilograms on 80 kilograms of body weight. And I was standing next to Mike, and I simply didn't look like as if I ever touched a weight before in my life.
I just thought of a really funny joke.
Oh, what is it?
She was that big. She weighed 3 times you.
Yeah.
You pulled a bird 3 times your body weight. Sorry, obviously deadlift.
Yeah. Obviously the deadlift
doesn't count.
And yeah, but also on another note, he is super knowledgeable, brought really much value to the people, shared some quite interesting things with us, and it's just a super humble guy, and it was an awesome weekend, really. But we will probably touch on it later on the show, but for now I wanted, of course, to talk about your past 2 weeks, how they went, what has happened. Mm-hmm. I know that you've come close to the end of your
marination.
The marination phase. I'm always forgetting about that term. And just tell us a little bit about the past 2 weeks, how they went, if there was anything special going on,
So the past 2 weeks has been overreaching week and then a deload, basically. So overreaching week has just been balls to the walls, everything. So this was my marination phase, but mesocycle within kind of a stream of mesocycles where I use the kitchen sink of training tools, so standard hypertrophy with metabolites, higher rep ranges, getting the pump. And that was mainly done through drop sets, a few supersets on the body parts that kind of I deemed it worked well for. So not really doing much for back, hamstrings. I don't feel like that is particularly beneficial for. But anyway, so had that week, basically wrecked myself. And then have just gone through a really light deload. So just actually trained with Pascal this morning, starting the primer phase, so kind of a low volume strength block. So the past 2 weeks have been great. I just feel the biggest benefit, and what we'd already talked about, was the main thing I was looking to get out of the primer phase, marination phase, getting my phases mixed up, was to get rid of kind of the diet fatigue, the food focus, the kind of lots of hunger all the time, and low energy levels. And actually we were just talking, it's like, I'd only eaten, it was like 7 p.m. almost, and I'd eaten 1,000 calories today. If that was a dieting time, I know I'd be ravenous and tired, whereas I was fine. So the food focus, the hunger, all of that, I'm going to touch on it because we just talk about everything. We're an open book on Revive to Stage, which I think you guys appreciate. My libido has come back. Like, actually, I'm thinking about, like, women exist. They have boobs and arse. I like this. And whereas
girlfriend probably appreciate that.
Yeah. So like even more like noticeably more kind of loving and caring, which sounds weird, but to anyone who's dieted or has competed, you'll know these sort of things go.
And also, food is simply a social thing.
Yeah. So eating out way more. We went out for pizza. I've been out for pizza like 2 times every week, anyone who keeps tabs on me. So all of those things, yeah, it's been really nice to have that break, and it really made me appreciate the contrasting differences. And I think there's pros and cons to every single phase that you go through as a bodybuilder, like cutting, massing, and this might be something to actually write an article on, because that'd be really interesting. But yeah, there's pros and cons of everything. And at the start, and there's always like a bit of a uncomfortable transition where I was a bit out of my routine. I didn't have the same structure. I was still very hungry though, as anyone who's done a refeed knows, like you are hungry for it, like it doesn't just get rid of your hunger. So it took a good few days to get rid of that. And actually, I think that plays a part in why consecutive day refeeds are really powerful, in that even when I take like diet breaks, it's not till the second half of that diet break I feel kind of normal again. I'm like, I actually do feel normal now, whereas the first kind of couple of days I'm definitely still in diet brain mode and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, overall really happy with how things have gone. I think you noticed, particularly Pascal, that my upper body, I kind of lost that sharpness, but filled out. So like my arms, my delts, my chest, everything has just gone. Whereas I think my lower body has kind of just stayed the same.
Which is kind of funny, because when I arrived here in London, it was obvious that you gained some size on your upper body, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's only muscle tissue, but definitely lean body. Hang on. Whoa.
Only muscle.
Are you saying that you gained weight? No. But of course, lean body mass in general. And you just throw me off track here. What I wanted to say is that it's kind of funny, because you probably most of the time would expect to actually gain more fat on your lower body first before it actually puts on or gets onto your upper body, for most of the people. And for you, it was kind of the other way around. And I know that your glutes are still shredded, but your upper body is a little bit softer.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean that it's lost any kind of definition, but you fill it out a little bit more, and you can clearly see that.
The weird thing, and I think we should touch on it, is the scale didn't really respond necessarily how you might expect. So traditionally people think you go for a mass and you're just like, yeah, the weight just comes on. Whereas my weight I ended my diet like here, went for a deload, came up here. Then first week of my diet came down a bit, and then I kind of edged up a little bit, and then I've kind of maintained. And then, the last 2 weeks have kind of been maintaining. I had a few issues with edema and water weight, which probably caused some of these fluctuations big time, and it's gone the last 2 weeks, which has been really nice, because, I don't know, it just sucks having the edema there. It makes you kind of self-conscious, your calves look really small, and it's a bit uncomfortable at times. So it's really nice that that's all settled. And it's weird, I kind of just feel ready to diet again. And I think that's part of just being uncomfortable with being spilled over. Effectively what's happened to me is I'm spilled over, and I'm more than full of glycogen. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of get back into prep really, but got to dial it back first, and Mike spoke about it this weekend, in that when you use the kitchen sink of hypertrophy tools, you need to progressively overload to see kind of when you go into dieting, you don't want to start off kind of doing less volume than you possibly could for hypertrophy, so you don't kind of lose gains in a sense. So I need to go dial back my volume so I become kind of sensitive to it again, and allow these kind of fatigue markers to level themselves out like AMPK, let mTOR come back up. Mike knows a lot more detail about those sort of things than me, but it's kind of some of the things we picked up from him. And then, I'm excited to get dieting again eventually, but the biggest benefits have definitely been the sociability, and I've kind of embraced that as much as possible. And then even my clients were commenting like, you already see, like, I think the actual energy levels, that's a good point. Energy levels came back quite quick. What took time was the food focus. That took time to get rid of, and the libido took time. The actual kind of energy levels was quite quick. And again, I guess you could relate that to refeeds, because I think some people do find they kind of replenish of glycogen, so they get their energy levels back, but maybe the food focus and the hunger is still there.
Yeah, and we've talked about it here in the past weeks that for some people, refeeds actually cause some kind of spike in their metabolism, which makes them kind of more ravenous and even more food focused.
Yeah.
So it could potentially be that in the beginning, your body sensed that it gets more nutrition now, and you really needed to control not to overeat then, because that would have been counterproductive for your whole contest prep, because you were still in a contest prep, right? I mean, that's the thing. But it's really cool to hear that you are back on track now, also mentally and physiologically as well, that you had the time to actually spend a little bit more time with Charlotte, going out, socialize. I know that you've also met up with one of your best mates as well.
Yeah, and met my clients twice, went out for pizza with them. It's just you really underappreciate it when you're massing or bulking or even maintaining, how flexible you can be in that regard.
You've touched on one point. Now that your fatigue of dieting and training is a little bit lower, are you now pushing it harder when you're going into a cut again, or are you taking it more on a conservative approach, taking it a little bit slower and aiming for, I don't know, 0.5% of body weight loss, or are you aiming actually towards the higher end, something like 1%, because you are actually more fresh for it?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I do just want to point out that I'm not dieting just yet. I've got a month of kind of low volume training to reduce that fatigue even further. And actually, I'll tell the guys that I'm planning to change. As many of you will have known, I was doing the 6 days a week, AM, PM session. Now I'm moving towards 5 days a week, so I can have my weekends or have a day in the week off, and just AM sessions, so no double days. So like, that's going to free up so much time. I'm going to be really like, when I get into dieting again, going back to AM, PM sessions is going to be like, this is fun. Like, this is really enjoyable. Whereas I think I was getting a bit washed out or drained by them. They were just like, this is tough.
Yeah.
After like 3 mesocycles, 15 weeks of doing AM, PM sessions, 6 days a week. So yeah, when I get into the diet, I think initially that first mesocycle, I'll be looking to lose at the top end. So that 1% body weight per week would be great. As we know, when I did it before, it didn't pan out like that. So I will plan a deficit that would theoretically lose around kind of 1.5 pounds per week. That's what I'm going to set myself up for. And then with training, I'll be back down at the kind of standard hypertrophy, and then build up to higher rep ranges, maybe some down sets, and then again with the kitchen sink, which would be like the pre-stage kind of training cycle.
This brings up an idea or a thought now, because I also have the opinion that you are able to push a little bit harder when you're coming out of a phase where this marination phase, for example, where you had a more or hypercaloric state. You brought fatigue levels down in terms of dieting, training, but when you push it hard, won't that lead you to be even quicker fatigued again? When we take that kitchen sink analogy, won't you screw up the water which flows into the sink like really hard and get fatigued more quickly, which then leads you to take a diet break quicker?
In terms of training, you talk about. So
not just in terms of training, but also nutrition.
I don't think so. I think because I'll be basically, I had a first phase of contest prep. This is my second phase. So I think I'm basically restarting. Now, do I think I'm as fatigue free as when I was here? Probably not, because I was slightly fatter and I hadn't dieted for a longer period of time than what I am right now. But I still think I have the capacity to push a bit harder in the start, and I'd much prefer to push harder in the beginning in terms of nutrition, training, not training, because I'm going to have done a primer phase such low volume.
Absolutely.
Anything above that's absolutely fine. May even see a kind of, if you're lucky if you see this, but a bit of a recomp because you're now doing higher volume training. Also, my macronutrients are changing. So right now I'm going high fat, lowish carb, and proteins level. Whereas when I go into cutting, I'll bring the fats right down, like in half. Try and keep my carbs basically as high as they can be. And so kind of that will hopefully potentiate a bit of progress in terms of muscle mass potentially, which is what we theorise might have happened earlier, and why I didn't see the scale kind of do that. But like I was saying, I prefer to be aggressive on the front end rather than at the back end and be ready early or something than having to make up time, just because you are definitely going to be fatigued when you're further into the diet. So better when you're in a fresher state to be a bit more aggressive, go a bit faster when you're full of fuel, and then kind of try and trickle it down as you get closer and closer. That's the theory behind it. We'll see what happens in practice.
I think it also comes down to the personality.
Yeah.
And the individual itself. How fast will they accumulate fatigue? How fast will the diet fatigue set in as well? And also all the symptoms that comes along with it. Now you touched on the primer phase. What exactly is the primer phase for those people who have never heard of it? Because it's a term you came up with,
I
right?
just made it up. Apparently, it means different things to different people, because I think, I've forgotten what his name is, Ben Podolsky, Ben Podolsky, is that right? BPAC, has a primer phase, but this is like a technique phase where everyone learns technique and then they go into like further phases. But for me, the primer phase is basically, you might have heard it as it's basically a strength phase or strength mesocycle or a maintenance mesocycle, resensitization mesocycle. I like it called the primer phase because it's setting me up for later phases of training for a bodybuilder at least. So lower volume, so my volumes are at minimum effective, just minimum volumes, so minimum volumes to maintain muscle mass. If you've heard of the volume landmarks from Mike Israetel, so yeah, maintenance volumes, not minimum, maintenance volumes, which will stay basically stable, so my sets won't really change throughout this mesocycle, and then that's at about 50 to 60% of my usual minimum effective volumes, so very low compared to traditional hypertrophy training, and then intensity staying within kind of 4 up to maybe 10 reps at most, but mostly in that 4 to 6 rep range, lots of 6 to 8s, and going to big compound lifts, getting rid of anything that doesn't make sense basically, so chest flies don't make sense for that sort of repetition range, but still keeping in some bicep work, tricep work, traps, calves. I'm still a bodybuilder. Those still want to be maintained, but the volume is going to be way lower. And then because volume's so low, this is why fats are increased to allow carbs to come down, because carbohydrates aren't needed so much. You're not using so much glycogen during training.
So you're going full keto mode?
Pretty much full keto, but no, probably carbs will probably, in my mass, they came up to just over 500. I'll probably keep them between 250 and 300. I'm going to be more flexible during this time just because I can be.
We were at Nando's now, today. Are you going to Nando's now? More frequently?
I will probably do the same frequency. Oh, actually, Nando's in particular, we've talked about this, in that it's way overhyped and it's so high in fat. Everything seems to be high in fat there.
Totally overrated. Yeah.
And you said it. Totally overrated.
Totally overrated.
We're going to lose so many fans right now.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to send some hate mails, send them to steve@revivestronger.com, and I'd be willing to answer all your hate mails.
Nando's, it's nice, it's pretty quick, and it's fairly cheap.
It is.
But as far as restaurants go, it wouldn't be like, oh, I'm visiting London, I want to go to Nando's.
No, and that's exactly what I mean. I mean, what's cool about it is that they are writing out their macronutrient.
That's handy.
That's really handy. Also, that it is quick and cheap.
Yeah.
This is always something we like, right? And the quality is good. I mean, we are not saying that Nando's is shit, but there are definitely better places. When I want to experience a good cuisine, Nando wouldn't be the place to go. But for dieting in general, and also in such terms, just to calm down the haters now, I'm not saying Nando's is shit. There are better places.
But anyway, I think the maintenance primer phase is a really good time for bodybuilders in particular to really drop any kind of, obviously the food focus, but like macronutrient constrictions. Hit your protein, hit your calories, you're doing a very good job. You don't have to be obsessed about eating lots of low-fat carbs and cereal and snack jacks. Like, you love those, you can do that, but it might be a good time to allow your carbohydrate intake to come down, so you're not just plummeting your system with loads of insulin, which is, carbs produce a lot of insulin, so you can potentially become a bit more sensitive to it, because when you produce less of it, you become a bit more sensitive to it. So then when you come out and you can maybe keep your carbs as high as they were or raise them, then that's only of benefit. Rather than coming out of it and having to drop your carb intake, then your body's a bit like, ah. So it's also nice because restaurants are always high fat. So I would never order what I ordered at Nando's during a massing phase, or even when I'm cutting, because there was just, I think I must have had like 40 grams of fat in my meal, more than that.
Chicken filled with avocado. Fried chicken filled with avocado.
They should do that.
That doesn't sound as bad.
But yeah, you get to enjoy more, I like cheese. You get to enjoy full fat cheese. You get to enjoy avocados. I've done it with clients, and some of them have been like a bit apprehensive. They're like, oh, but I'm used to the low fat lifestyle, the higher carb intake, and I like my carbs. But then you do it with them, they're like, the first few days is a bit weird, but then once you get into like having avocados, like actually allowing yourself to cook with butter and stuff, you actually appreciate having a more varied diet. I think it's a healthy thing to do. So yeah, I really want to get back into dieting, because I really, really want to see my physique change in a more positive way, because mentally it's been tough seeing my physique get softer and me be less lean. It was really nice at the start, because it was like basically like a bit of a peak week, because I just saw my muscles fill out, whereas now it's kind of like, oh, I'm more than filled out, and I don't look as lean, and like I'm just.
And then you went on to Instagram, looked at my Instagram profile and my physique, and you were just like, okay, everything is still in check.
That's actually true. I feel much better now.
But now from a long-term perspective, you are coming into the primer phase, which will be around 4 weeks.
Yeah, it'll probably be, unless
I
can convince Mike to tell me that I can do it in less weeks. Not that he's coaching me, just I will be meeting up with him over the next few days and probably asking him a few questions about my next steps. It's planned as like a 3 week accumulation, 1 week deload. So it'll be this week, 2 more weeks deload.
And then really looking for that show date in September, right? What's the plan for the next month? Do you want to cut down into the show? Are you planning on pushing it a little bit harder to then be able to eat into the show? What's your plan around that?
So there's various ways you can do it, and I'm not sure which way I sit with it. But I do think, and it kind of played true from my marination phase, in that by eating up, I would kind of look better. And it depends, do you want to be show ready early and then eat up into the show, or do you want to diet down and then just have a peak week? Is the peak week quick enough for you to look filled out and your best? Do you want to, because this is a horrible place to be, dig for a short period of time, get in and out, or do you want to come slowly into this horrible place and then slowly come out? I think it depends on the person. I think there's arguments for both ways. Again, this is probably something I'll pass by Mike, who I really trust, and his opinion with this. At the end of the day, I think it will be a bit of a whatever happens kind of happens. I think for me, it might be a safer approach to be ready early and then go up, because it will allow my edema or whatever it might be to settle, but we'll just have to see. Oh. If I'm ready early, then we'll do that approach. If I'm not ready early, then I'll be ready on time. I don't know what you're thinking, what you're doing, or.
I mean, a peak week is always risky. You're coaching yourself, so you know your body quite well. When you are coaching other people or you get coached, a peak week is always an experiment, and there can be stuff that goes wrong where you spill over. And I mean, when you have the chance of eating yourself into a show, you will feel better mentally. You will probably also be able to tense your muscles a little bit more, because you have a little bit refueled. And there's not that big of a chance that you look spilled over, because you can always. It's like a front load.
It's actually. Like a very early front load.
You can counterbalance some things that might put your appearance into a non-good looking state. And I think both approaches have their pros and cons.
Yeah.
If I could choose though, I would always be ready early.
I think we're close to time. I just want to make sure we don't run out of time, but I did want to introduce, we're actually going to be, hopefully me and Pascal are going to be going through some coaches we respect, see what their peaking strategies are, and the strategies towards prep in these darker phases are.
Yes.
See what they recommend, and come to a conclusion to what we think is the best strategy to take. And it may well be, and probably will be, neither's the right answer, and it just depends on the case.
Absolutely. And we will be back in just a couple of seconds, because we need to split it up. Our camera shit, it only takes 30 minutes of time, so we just cut it short here, and see you in a minute. Yeah, back again. Revived stage, second part. Isn't it lovely? It is. What are we going to talk about now, Steve?
So I'm slowly stripping off, because this Nando's is slowly seeping into me and making me very hot.
Yeah, I'm getting really hot as well, but only because I had over 130 grams of carbs in the form of rice cakes.
Yeah, a whole sleeve of Snapper Jacks, caramel Snapper Jacks.
Yeah, and I had Nando's meal prior to that, and I'm really not satiated. Yeah, welcome to dieting life, actually. Anyway.
And actually, this is interesting. How many calories have you eaten today?
2,500.
So Pascal's eaten 2,500 calories. He's hungry. I've eaten 2,000 calories. I'm not bothered. Which is just crazy. And if that's to show I've come from a surplus here and you've come from being in a prolonged deficit, yes. It makes such a big difference. Like, you can't look on a single day.
Yeah. And the funny thing is actually that the past days, we've been together over the past days, and you experienced that I was simply the whole time talking about being hungry, and I filled myself up with lots of veggies. And the only thing that kept me sane was the fact that we were busy yesterday with the first day of the seminar and the second day of the seminar here today. On Friday, I was kind of quote unquote starving. It sounds severe because I'm definitely not in the stages of leanness where I would experience kind of the dark moments, but I'm actually not satiated. It's simply I'm filling myself up with food, but it seems like it doesn't really go into my stomach, which is odd because we are close to the same intake here today already, and I don't really feel like as if I've
eaten at all.
Eaten at all, yeah. And I had some mushrooms prior to Nando's as well, and goes to show that
it's just crazy. But I think in this second half we want to talk about, and I think we've been asked to do a bit of a kind of a review roundup of maybe main takeaways from the Mike Israetel conference, and I will first of all say we haven't planned this, so we haven't gone and talked to each other and been like, I think these are the main takeaways I got, these are the main takeaways I got, these are off the top of our head, which I think has its pros and cons. It will be more genuine and it will be more kind of, these are actually, oh, this is on the top of my head, this is definitely a takeaway, rather than kind of a planned out thing. So I'm going to let Pascal start. And then there'll probably be the same takeaways, but yeah.
No, the biggest takeaway is actually, I think I will have something else than you. The biggest takeaway is actually the mentality of the whole sport in general, which stuck super much with me. What Mike was actually talking about when he said about the best thing about it would be not to compare yourself to others. Don't look at the social medias and try to replicate what others have. Don't get too focused on the life of others. Only try to become the best version of yourself. But in the way he pointed it out, he really described it logically and comprehensively. Talked about it like 30 minutes in length, which I can't really, of course, I'm only summarizing now, but the main takeaway was simply try to become the best version of yourself and try to simply enjoy the whole part about lifting, training, nutrition, all that comes along with it. I mean, we started that sport, or hopefully you started that sport either because you wanted to improve something due to your health, or you simply enjoyed the sport in general, or you got into it and then you developed simply a love for the sport.
Everyone just wanted to look better naked. That's also fine.
But that's fine. I mean, if that means that this will lead you to become happier in general, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to compete, or you don't need to be a powerlifter stepping on, going to a meet or something. And I can see it so often nowadays that it became the go-to thing that everyone needs to compete. Mm-hmm. You're not a bodybuilder because you're not stepping on stage, and that's absolutely not true. Because I've seen people who stepped on stage who didn't know shit about training, who didn't know anything about nutritional things, and without bashing female bikini competitors, but you can't step on a bikini stage after 6 months of training, 1 year of training. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are loving the sport. It could potentially be that you've seen those ladies on Instagram now, and simply due to the fit fam movement, you think that it's necessary to step on stage because otherwise you're worthless. And that's absolutely not the case. And I know people who never competed and who probably will never compete in their life, but who are fucking strong and who will smash everyone when they actually would step on stage. And it's absolutely not necessary to be a competitor to love the sport. So I think there's so much valid reason for going or approaching the bar itself, or the training and nutrition, when you simply want to look good. Mm-hmm. And this all, how he described it and everything he said about it, that the most important thing should be that you are loving yourself and loving what you're doing. And if you're not doing things that would lead you to be happier, then why do it in the first place? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of funny, because this was only a small thing at the whole seminar, which then had the biggest impact on me, but also perhaps because it resonates with me that much.
Yeah.
And I hardly ever see anyone sharing this or his thoughts like this, which then resonates with my way of thinking how to approach actually the whole thing about training and nutrition. Because let's face it, I mean, in the past 2 to 5 years, fitness became kind of a popular thing. And
bodybuilding's grown.
And
powerlifting now as well.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that the people who are getting into the sport don't enjoy it. Most of them probably do, because they also feel like a part of a community, which is good. But I also think that so many people go into that because it's only a trend and they are doing it for the wrong reasons. And they think that having a six pack will make them more successful and happier in life, which most of the case isn't the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably feeling better for 2 to 3 weeks, but after that, you will forget about your achievements. It is a state in which you are at, and yeah, nothing has really changed in your life because the underlying problem, which did make you unhappy in the first place, didn't change at all. And yeah,
I think I could relate that to like buying a flash car. Like that car's going to make you really happy in the moment, but over the long term, what's it going to buy you? Nothing much. It's like they say in life, like experiences are what kind of makes a life. Like that's the thing you enjoy most, not the fancy watch or whatever it might be. And it's just like if you can't enjoy the experience of the sport for what it is, then stepping on stage isn't going to change a thing. I think it was interesting you talked about people kind of feel, I think it's seen as something flashy and cool to compete and get really lean and that sort of thing. And I also see kind of maybe some younger coaches who aren't necessarily fully developed in their career and in their own physique, maybe trying to compete earlier than maybe they should, or even in powerlifting or bodybuilding, and not really knowing what they really want to do yet.
Yeah.
And they kind of feel a bit pressured into doing it early, when I think, like you said, just get really good at doing it and you'll find it kind of finds you eventually in future. Really interesting that was your main takeaway.
But I was also busy, by the way, with the whole camera setup, and I need to re-listen and watch over the RP Plus stuff. So we recorded the whole thing for RP Plus members. So if you want to see the seminar, you need to sign up for RP Plus or Renaissance Periodization Plus.com, I think.
At some point, because lots of people asked if we recorded it for sale, but we never wanted to record it, us guys. So, but Mike wanted to record it for RP Plus, which is pretty legit and cool, and it's a very cool website. But yeah, I'm looking forward to looking over it as well, and I think our takeaways are going to be different to other people's.
Absolutely,
especially
definitely.
My own takeaways, because I know Mike's concepts, I know his thoughts and views about things, and in fact, I don't think there was anything brand new that he presented on the days to me, but I think that's a rare thing. The thing I took away probably most was actually seeing him perform the lifts in person, and like you see him do them on Instagram, and you see his form's really good, but watching him do his whole setup, like for every movement, was just like, everything was spot on. No like mistakes. And in particular the squat and the setup for hitting the squat for hypertrophy and high bar. But there's more to it than that. Kind of his whole reasoning behind his whole setup was just fascinating in a sense, and something I hadn't really considered. And it makes me, in some ways, very kind of not sad, or it makes me envious of the people who get to train with him one-on-one like all the time, because they're just ingrained fantastic form. And he talked about this with Jared Feather, and this was really funny. In fact, those of you who don't know Jared Feather, he was kind of he got taught by Mike, and is now at RP Plus as like their head bodybuilding coach. So anyway, he was talking about how he's envious of Jared because Jared found Mike very early, and so Mike could help Jared very early, which is kind of bigging Mike up himself, and so he should, because fantastic form, like timeless form at its best, and it just ingrained how important form is and how unimportant the load is, and how important it is to actually think about the tension that muscle is specifically feeling, and not necessarily your ego and like using your knee sleeves and your belt and a shallow squat to get the most weight out, because intensity is king. It's not for a bodybuilder. You're going to build bigger squats, squatting lighter weight, full depth without that stuff, and getting full contraction, because your muscles don't know how much weight is on the bar. They only know what they're feeling. Same with fatigue. Like your body doesn't know how many reps and sets it's doing. All it knows is how much fatigue it's feeling. So like if people have maximal recoverable volume numbers of sets in their head, they shouldn't, because your muscle doesn't know what its MRV is, or it shouldn't know that average MRVs are like 15 to 20 or whatever. It just knows how fatigued it is, and then you have to use that. Think about concentrating on your own body, your own results, and that's what made MRV much less confusing for me, because I was just like, right, it's just auto-regulation and a really good tool to think about that. So I think that was my main takeaway, was really the timeless form. It was, and to see Mike again and be on a more personal level with him and just realise how fantastic he is, and how I look up to him as someone in the fitness industry, not just for his knowledge, but also his ability to deal with like haters and to deal with maybe questions that you might feel are much beneath him, and not to at all ever belittle anyone, and be incredibly humble and understanding, and always take in kind of where are they coming from, what are they getting kind of confused, because he gets all the time where people miss up, like confuse his concepts, and I've had people confuse what I'm saying and they misinterpret it, and some people are open to hearing why. So for their benefit, I try and do what Mike does and really get down to their level. So those were my main takeaways. I mean, it could have been probably a week-long thing,
absolutely,
because Mike can go on and on and on, and you don't want him to stop. I know there was times in which Pascal was like, right, we need to have like a break here. He's looking at me like, we need to have a break, and I'm just like, yeah, but everyone's really engaged. Can't we push it a bit later? It's like, if we keep pushing later, we'll never stop. It's like, I never want it to stop.
Yeah, the German guy again, the structure. When we were 1 minute over time, and I just closed the whole thing. No, but what also stuck with me was I couldn't really believe that he's only 32 years old.
A lot of people said the same.
Simply, not from the looks of him. He's massive, and you can't really believe that you're able to achieve that muscularity in 32 years. I guess he actually born with like 15 kilos of muscle mass immediately.
That would have been a painful birth.
Painful birth for the mother. No, but from his life experience and the things, how he looks at things, and the maturity. It sounds so crazy, but his wisdom, actually, and it was awesome to hear his thoughts and the things he shared, because it wasn't only about methodologies, about training and nutrition, but more so he opened up, talked about his personal views, what he experienced, and this is, I think, nearly more valuable than any written out methodologies when it comes to training.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed listening to him. He's a great entertainer.
Yeah.
Really good speaker. He engaged with the people. Everyone, I think, felt like as if we were only 10 people in the room, but we were actually 80 people.
Yeah.
And it was just an awesome weekend in general. And there were so many things I could also mention here which had an influence on my way of thinking and how I will probably approach things in the future when it comes to training and nutrition. But to put one, or if I need to say one thing that really stuck with me, then this was simply it.
I massively respect his ability to challenge his own concepts and be challenged and open to challenges, and kind of delve into questions and really kind of fathom them out, and be willing to do that, because I think a lot of people aren't. And then also, I've been to seminars before, and they're fantastic seminars, but the information hasn't necessarily changed, and fair enough, a lot of stuff doesn't change, but Mike is always on I feel like he's on the cutting edge. I feel like he's always trying to challenge what he's previously thought, and he wants to update things. He wants kind of optimality as best as you can. And this seminar, there was nothing said in this seminar that was in the one in 2016. This was all new, fresh content, which made it incredibly engaging for people who had come the year before. And I know they'll come in future years because they know Mike will come out with something. That
probably also because he's coming from a scientific background, but also he has this strive to become the very best in the sport. Something we have seen with Dorian Yates, for example, who always tries something else, and he couldn't really explain it on a scientific way, but he simply had some methods which then showed afterwards that they were actually some truth to his way of thinking. And now Mike is not only kind of in the mentality like Dorian Yates, that he's trying to get into territories where no one else has been before, but also is coming from a scientific background with this critical thinking actually, and also understanding the science-based principle behind stuff. So he's kind of in a new territory
where not
many people have been before, and with a mindset like a researcher.
That's a big reason actually Mike drew my attention initially, was because you have the people who are very evidence-based. Not to say Mike isn't evidence-based, he certainly is. But you have the people very much, PubMed says this, research says this, so we do this. Then you have the people who are very much, science is bollocks, like we just do whatever. Probably a bit more than that, but they have their reasonings, they have lots of anecdote. And then you have people in the middle, and there aren't that many people in the middle. And I think the middle's probably, for me, the best place to be. And I think a person who might be in the middle, maybe a bit over this way, is someone like Charles Poliquin. And something Charles will say is like, I forget what his terming is, but he talks about kind of, like studies that show that what he's been doing was right all along. And he was like, if you just waited for a study to come out to prove something, you'd be 10 years behind. And he thinks he's on the cutting edge. I feel like, and I'm obviously biased, massively biased, Mike is much more on that cutting edge, much more taking that science and also using kind of anecdote and looking at history and like what worked for other people, the best bodybuilders, and finds that new approach and will update his methods as the science comes out, rather than kind of being a bit out here like Charles Poliquin. But yeah, you can't put a price on what we just got this weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a good summary.
Totally.
And if people do have specific questions or anything like that, let us know and we'll get to them. And yeah, I think that's pretty much a wrap for us. I don't know if we've got anything coming up we need to let them know about in the coming. We have nothing now. Well, actually, you might have noticed we have some swanky new clothing.
Oh yeah.
Which will be on sale. We did sell quite a lot this weekend, which is awesome.
I have the hoodies on.
So yeah, they're on the website, but probably best is to maybe email me at steve@revivestronger.com, or do check the website. If you do buy one and we don't have that in stock or size, like I'll just refund you. But at the moment we have a decent amount of stock, and hopefully we'd really appreciate your support as always. Like people have been really kind of impressed with the clothing, and I'm really impressed by it myself. So
yeah, it's really nice.
Looks good. It'll make you look better.
It's good. No, but as usual, we highly appreciate your support and would also like you to, as always, review the podcast over at iTunes. Leave a comment when you're looking at this episode over at YouTube. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe. This always helps us massively to spread the word, and yeah.
And we love every comment. Like, we want like a community, and we're slowly getting that, I think. And I think this plays into something Mike was saying about kind of how to get around the social pressures he was talking about during the seminar, in that kind of sometimes you feel like, should you be doing what you're doing? Maybe your girlfriend doesn't understand, maybe your family don't understand, and we, Team Revive Stronger, want to create that community for you to feel like we understand, we know what you're going through, and if you comment, like, you're kind of feeling a bit more like you're part of the family, and the more people you can surround yourself that are doing the similar thing to you, I think it's only a good thing. So yeah, like, we're just want to be friends with everyone.
Yeah, the last thing I just wanted to mention is I wanted to shout out a special thanks to all the attendees of this weekend, all the support, everyone who participated, everyone who couldn't make it but would like to, and I'm sure that we are going to host a seminar like this and getting Mike over for another time, probably not this year but certainly next year. And yeah, a really big thank you to all of you. We highly appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. And yeah, we love you all.
It couldn't happen without you. So yeah, massive thank you
Totally.
to anyone new following us, to anyone who's been following us a long time, whoever's watching this. Just thank you for listening, thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and yeah, we're gonna all revive stronger together.
Bam!